Welcome to Life, Laughter, Divorce, episode 18. I am your host, Leanne Linsky.
And I'm the boyfriend.
And we are here with another brand new episode for you. Thanks to everybody who has taken the time to rate, review, and subscribe. And if you haven't, please do so. And
on Stitcher or iTunes.
Or iTunes, yes.
You can do both.
You can do both.
That would be nice.
You do both. And also, while you're out there on the internet, you should probably stop by and check out the new website that's up for Life, Laughter, Divorce. So go to lifelaughterdivorce.com, click on the classes tab, and check out the new class that I'll be offering on Thursday, June 15th. It's actually going to be a live webinar, interactive live webinar, and the class is Intro to Divorce Prov.
Live webinar. We talked about this last week. I'm still a little weirded out by this.
You're weirded out by live webinars?
Yeah, normally they're like pre-recorded. You follow along.
Yeah, no. This is like live. It's like me in your living room.
I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry. She's in. Yeah, I'm going to stop right there.
Okay, maybe it's not quite like that, but you will be able to see me on your computer screen. I will be able to see you. So you can do it from the comfort of your own home. Pajamas, preferably if you're dressed. That's probably good because you'll need a webcam and speaker microphone capability so I can see and hear you and vice versa. But it should be a good time. So check that out. Stop by the website, all that good stuff.
So what do you get with the class?
So what do you get with the class? You get a live
we went over that.
Me.
What else do you get?
Oh, right. And what is it about? So I'm calling it Divorce Prov. Basically, it's a class specifically designed for divorcees, taking the basics of improv comedy technique and applying them to our life. So I know from being a divorcee that oftentimes we go through emotions like frustration, stress. We don't really want to go out and hang out with people like we used to. We kind of want some time alone. We isolate, things of that nature. We're going through some hard times. So this is an opportunity to kind of get out of your shell, but yet still in your comfort zone because it's from home, and an ability to interact with people just like you who are also experiencing divorce or who have at some point in their life. And, it can be a topic, but the cool thing about it is taking the basics of improv comedy technique, which I found very helpful through my divorce because it kind of got me out of my head and it gave me a way to have fun at my situations, talk about it, but in a way that wasn't therapy or, oh, woe is me, but more in a way of how can I have fun with this because it's kind of outside of the normal thing. Outside of the comfort zone. But in the process, it gave me the ability to see things with a new perspective. And also it made me a better communicator. And so I'm taking those things and
so all the positives, but your prereqs are being divorced.
Right. Exactly.
Awesome.
That's nut in a nutshell.
Yes.
That's a nut in a nutshell, so to speak. So yeah.
All right. So I'm going to ask all of our listeners to do us a favor.
Mm-hmm.
So you said go to the classes part of the page on the website. So I'm going to recommend go to our website, go to the podcast page, and there's a section down at the bottom where you could leave comments or have questions. We're really interested in hearing what you are interested in hearing. That sounds weird, but it's true. We want to know what you want us to talk about or what topics to explore as we continue on this journey together. And then we also want to know what you think. So just give us some tips, give us some reviews, and we'll be happy to try to accommodate those as going forward with our podcast.
Yeah, we want to hear from you. We want to get inside your head.
I don't.
All right. Well, I'm creepy.
Yep.
So yeah, we want to do that. So yeah, let's get this deal started. Back.
So y'all got to be thinking, Oh, where's today's guest?
Where is today's guest?
Well, today's guest was a interesting email we did receive recently.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to let Leanne tell you about it.
Yeah. The person that is our quote guest today would prefer to remain anonymous. Didn't want to come on the show. They reached out to us via email and had some questions about cheating. So, boyfriend, I'm gonna let you explain what our listener wrote to us.
Well, she explained her situation, that she's been married for a little while. I'm not going to get into the details of the letter. I want to keep her anonymity. That one.
Easy for me to say.
Yeah. But basically her question came down to, what do I do? She found out that her partner had a physical relationship with somebody, and she's lost. And I think most of us have been there. I've been there before, not as a married couple, but in a relationship. And once you get that sort of information, you're just like, what do I do?
Yeah.
You don't know. It's just shock to the system. You feel betrayed. You feel cheated on, which you are, and what do you do? So
first of all, I want to disclose that we're not necessarily professionals. We're not a professional therapist or any other sort of professional, but
I'm just the boyfriend.
You haven't even been married, so there's that. and I don't know if my experience is exactly like our friend's experience. We're gonna call it our friend.
Okay.
Just ease. So the friend, like the boyfriend. So the friend, our guest, we don't have a lot of details, so it's really hard to say what you should do. And I don't know that that's necessarily for us to decide because we're not in that particular relationship, but we can certainly talk about some of the things that we know from our own personal relationships. And the boyfriend and I actually took some time to do some research online and look up some of the things, because we actually had a really interesting conversation about, what are the chances of people surviving a marriage, or what's the chance of a marriage succeeding after somebody has had an affair or has been cheated on? Because, I really don't know. I mean, from your experience, boyfriend, what do you want to talk about that from your personal point of view?
So my personal relationship, or just friends that I've had who've experienced this?
What are you comfortable talking about?
I'll talk about my personal relationship.
All right, fair enough.
This was, I don't know, almost 20 years ago. So it was a while,
Mm-hmm.
while back. And at that point, you're younger. Things happen.
I would hope so, because that would be weird.
Well, yeah.
Benjamin Button.
Yeah. Wow. So you're younger, things happen. But I was in a relationship that was, let's see, we were together for about a year at this point. And yeah, and I sensed something was going on, but I wasn't even told until 6 months later that she cheated on me, and that it wasn't with just one person. It was with two people. It was two separate incidences. I was told one-offs, not like one night stands, not long-term kind of things. And it was 6 months after the fact. And she, at least, actually, no, she told, going back into the vaults of my memory right now.
Creak. I hear that door opening.
No, her roommate was actually doing a summer internship and staying in the area that I was at. So she didn't want her roommate to tell me, because her roommate knew. So she fessed up before her roommate moved in, or moved up to the area that I was living in. And that's how I found out. So it wasn't even like I don't know, an altruistic kind of thing. It wasn't like, I'm just going to tell you and see how we're doing. I'm doing it to protect myself because I don't want someone else to sell me out.
So she was just doing it out of fear.
Yeah. And me being a dumbass at the time, I'm like, it was 6 months ago. We're still going. All right, I think we can make this work. And I stayed with her.
Right.
Yeah. And it lasted for another 2 years after that.
2 years, that's a long time.
Yeah, so we were together a little over 3 years, but it just finally fizzled out, and it wasn't because of a breakup. So I guess the point of the story is, with respect to the existing question, is yes, it can survive because it wasn't the infidelity that ended the relationship. It was just growing apart, and it may have contributed a little bit because of trust issues,
Right.
but it wasn't the main factor that ended the relationship.
It wasn't the ultimate deal breaker.
No, we continued on, but we were also really young at the time. But we continued on having our relationship.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that was the only time that I know of that I was cheated on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. And she had done it not once, but twice.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So.
Back in those days, it was college days, and one was on spring break.
Havasu?
No.
Oh, okay. Oh, man. Well, I'm sorry.
No, it's life. You learn from these experiences, and you take from it, and it affects your relationships, or at least makes you smarter in other relationships when you go forward.
Right. It's true. I mean, I've certainly been cheated on. I'm trying to think of one time in particular that I'm going to talk about, but I just know that,
So hold on. Well, that begs the question: you've been cheated on more than once?
Yeah.
Okay.
Different people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Different relationships.
Different relationships. And I've been cheated on. And I think, it's been, there have been the times that it's most certainly a deal breaker for me. And there has been a time where, there's been times where I wasn't sure, like I knew something was amiss. And I think we instinctively know when something's wrong.
Yeah.
And are in some sort of state of denial, or we just don't have nothing has come forth to prove itself. So it's kind of, suspicion more so than actual fact. So there's that. But, I think that's a hard thing. There's a lot of trust to rebuild. And depending on where you're at in the relationship, how long it's been, I think with a marriage, it's probably really hard because a marriage is a huge commitment. And it's harder to get out of a marriage than it is in a situation where you're
okay. So that's very interesting you bring that up, because in a relationship, it was just dating. We were together for a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's not the legalities and all the other issues that go along with it, like a marriage. But you just also said it's harder to get out. So it's a commitment. So you have your commitment to this person, and then you've broken that commitment.
Yep.
So that makes you want to get out.
Yep.
However, you have all the legalities and everything else that makes it really hard to get out.
Exactly.
So it's like a push-pull kind of thing. That's tough.
And well, in our case, like, you don't have any children. I don't have any children, that I know of. And I don't have any, but I know from talking to friends and family who have kids and they've gone through something like this, that's another layer to consider, because it's not just yourself that you're worried about and your own outcome. It's the outcome of an entire family. It's an outcome of other human beings and how they're affected and how they're impacted by this. So if it is something that, I could work through, then the benefits of staying may outweigh the benefits of me leaving. And I think that's something to take into consideration. Like, what do you have invested? Not just financially, but like, what do you have invested emotionally? What do you have invested in children? And that's not to say just if you have children or whatever, you should stay, but it's definitely something that has to be taken into consideration. The big picture. You have to look at the big picture, not just they cheated, I'm out.
All right, so I'm going to ask you this. That may have been, children specifically may have been a bigger issue 20, 30 years ago when the divorce rate was a little lower.
Right.
Our divorce rate is so high. There's so many children of divorce now.
Yeah.
Does that affect it? Because now children can relate with other children who've been through it.
Yes.
And may make it I don't want to say this, but there are now communities or people that you can relate with I'm not saying
Right.
it better or worse or whatever, but there's just a community of children that now are.
It's
that
definitely
want
more
their-
common.
Yeah. So
Yep.
it makes it.
More socially acceptable, right?
Yeah.
And so
It's still difficult.
it's still difficult. Absolutely. Divorce is a big undertaking. And I think no matter what, like, I want to, like, for focus here on and cheating, I think the effects of somebody else in the picture really complicates things to a different degree of, like, we're just not agreeing or getting along, or we're growing apart. I mean, those things all have those challenges as well. But to have trust broken, there's something there's that can leave some deep wounds, and that's hard to overcome depending on your relationship to begin with, or at all.
Well, I think that's the biggest issue. It's not really it is the physical cheating, but it's the trust.
Yeah.
You now no longer have the same amount or the same type of trust you had with that person from before.
Yeah.
And if you don't have trust with somebody, that's enough to break a relationship right there.
Right. How do you rebuild it? What do you do? And I think in the case of when somebody cheats too, I think it's a discussion to have of willingness to sit and work things out. You know, I think back to my own experience of going through the divorce. Had another, if I'm willing to work it out, but if you're not willing to work it out, there's nothing there.
Takes two to tango.
It takes two. And so that's a discussion like that could be, it has to be had with both partners in a marriage in order to decide if it's going forward, and if it is able to be rebuilt.
So how many marriages do you think end because of cheating?
I'm guessing probably about a half. But when we look at the numbers, what did we find out? That
it's not half. Only about 17% of marriages end because of infidelity.
Really?
Yeah, not many. That means a lot. Back to the factors or the things that you have to take into consideration, kids and the legalities and all these things. I bet that plays a large role in why people don't leave,
right?
Because of infidelity.
But I'm guessing a lot of people cheat. That's what I'm trying to think. We looked up some stuff, but I haven't memorized it. So I kind of want to have this we wanted to have this conversation of like what in our mind we think happens versus what actually happens. Because when we looked at this, we were like, holy crap, these are big discrepancies.
Yeah. In marriage,
yep,
22% of men cheat and 14 to 15% of women cheat. So there's a difference, but it was higher. It was more women cheated than I thought there would be.
Right.
And less men cheating than I thought there would be.
And what's interesting is one of the things that we did notice when we were looking this up is there's a higher number of women cheating nowadays because women have joined the workforce. And there's something to be said about that, because as women have stepped out of being a homemaker and into the workforce years ago, it did change things because now women are more financially independent. Women become out there and interacting with other people within a workplace. They're not just at home isolated with children all day either.
Yeah, you spend as much time at work as you do with your family sometimes.
Yep.
And that's relationships that you have at work that can turn into affairs.
Yeah.
Or other relationships. So how many people do you think actually cheat at work then?
I'm guessing that there's a pretty high. I would say it's high. Like out of all the people that cheat, it's got to be, because that's where you spend most of your time.
Yeah. So business trips and things and affairs that start at work, it's about 60% of people that cheat, they typically start at work.
Wow. That's huge.
That's over half of the people that cheat. It's because.
So this is scary, but I Like I'm not
I work
laughing
by
'cause-
myself. I
no,
don't have anyone.
no. What I'm like, I work from home. So, but I'm laughing because you think you're sending your spouse off to work like in a safe place or doing good things, and that's where they're most likely to have an affair. It's like, ooh, those work lunches and work functions.
Stay at home.
Yeah. I mean, that's a high number, but that makes a lot of sense because that's where you're going to get out. That's where you're going to have your freedom to be away from your spouse too.
Yeah. And where you're going to develop other relationships that are meaningful.
Right. Because you have a lot in common with people at work,
Yeah. And what's I don't have the stat off the top of my head, but when you go through stressful situations and when you go through good times and bad times with somebody, you typically get closer or have a better, stronger relationship. Yes. And everyone knows work nowadays, you have deadlines. They're stressful. You meet them, you have parties afterwards. So there's the ups and downs that you experience with these people every day. And that creates bonds that can potentially lead to
an
infidelity.
Affair. Yeah. Wow. And the other thing that we looked at is, how long do these things last? With our guest tonight, we don't have a lot of details of the situation. So we don't know if it was a one-off and we don't know if it was a long-term affair. But one of the things that we noticed that most of the time when people cheat, it's a long-term deal.
Yeah, it's the statistics say it's between 6 months and 2 years.
Yeah, they vary a little bit.
But that's you basically are creating another relationship outside of your marriage. It's not just a physical relationship. Now you're getting into emotional intimacy also.
Yeah, something definitely to consider when you're trying to figure out what to do. That's going to be personal to each person. Just, how they feel about that.
The interesting thing that I saw was like when do most affairs start? Like you've got your marriage, you've got your honeymoon phase, your newlyweds, and some people think around like the 7-year itch or 5 years or 10 years. No, relationships or affairs, external relationships to your marriage typically start around the 2-year mark. That's a lot earlier.
Doesn't it seem like way too soon? Like you should still be newlyweds at that point. 2 years is very early. But
the one thing they didn't provide with that information was how long you were dating beforehand. So I wonder if that plays a role because some people date for 2 or 3 years, engaged for 2 or 3 years, marriage. Now you're hitting that 7-year mark. So, but it's just interesting.
2 years seems really early, but I could see that. I mean, neither of my marriages lasted longer than that. So I guess, I could see that. That makes a lot of sense, And the other thing is here's the other thing that you have to look at, I think, when this happens, because it's not the same for everybody. But the other statistic that I found fascinating was that people who are happily married cheat. There's a high number of people who admitted they cheated and said they were actually happily married. They had no intention of leaving.
So since you've been married, why I couldn't even fathom that. Why would you do that?
Why would you step out? So
is it because you're happy emotionally with this person, but you
want some strange? Like, I don't know what right?
I was thinking that. I wasn't going to say it that way, but yeah.
Yeah. Like you want, I guess, change it up. But I mean, why, my thing is why would you risk it? I don't understand, that if you're happy, I can see, okay, so it makes more sense, like to cheat. I could see someone cheating if they're unhappy, right? That seems okay. That would make most sense. That would be logical. That's
very unadult. You're supposed to be like, I'm not happy. I'm going to want to end the relationship.
I'm going to work it out. Right. But if they're cheating and then they're like, no, I love my partner, but I'm doing this. That doesn't make I don't like that. But people do. There's a lot of people who do.
Yeah. It's 56% of men who have cheated said they were happy with their wife.
Yeah.
And a lot of women too, actually.
And it's like, I don't know. Is it cheating if you have an agreement?
Hall pass?
I mean, do you get hall pass? I mean, maybe some people do because
there's interesting relationships nowadays. Who knows?
There's a lot of people who are actually really open to that kind of thing. And again, the terms of the commitment there. And I think every relationship has its own of where the lines are to be crossed or not to be crossed. And
no judgment here, but if you can have an emotional commitment with somebody,
mm-hmm.
and you've established those rules that physically you're allowed to, both parties are allowed. Hey, who knows? Maybe that is the best.
Right. I mean, it may be the best for you.
Yeah.
What works for one person isn't exactly perfect for another
the best
person.
For me, I'm just saying the best.
No, not you. But so smarty. So, but yeah, I mean, everybody's different. Every relationship has its own unique qualities and characteristics to take into consideration. And what the other thing that I'm looking at here on our list of findings is 78% of men say cheating is wrong if you're married. But yet,
no, but that actually goes with the amount of men that actually cheated. 22% of men have cheated.
Yeah. Okay. So that makes sense.
Yeah. And then the same with women. 14% said cheated, and then about 85% said they would be.
Where is it one that said that women actually were cheating more often than men?
We don't have that stat here. But the one thing that I found interesting is what if you could do it and not get caught? How many people would think that would be okay?
Oh, I bet there's a lot. Right?
What does that say about your relationship then?
Yeah.
That's interesting to me.
Yeah. I've worked in construction for many years, so I know the answer to this question because these are the kinds of things on a rainy day when no one's walking houses that people would ask these questions. And I was like, oh, yeah. So I'm guessing that it's probably a high amount. And that kind of makes me sad to think that, hey, if I could get away with it, nobody would be found out, nobody would be hurt, I would definitely do it.
Yeah. And you know what? For a guy, being a guy, I could see that being a high number. Mm-hmm. And it's 74% of men would cheat if they wouldn't be caught. If they didn't think they'd get caught.
Yeah. Well, okay. So that's what's interesting. 78% of men say cheating is wrong if you're married. But yet 74% of the men would do it if they would never get caught. So they're like, it's wrong. But if I could do it and get away with it, I'm totally okay with it.
That's one way to look at it.
That's basically what we're looking at here, right?
I'm actually, because you're taking the men's side of this thing or going after the men. Well, I'm actually more interested in the women.
Well, okay. The woman is high too.
Yeah. The
woman is really high.
68% of women said they'd cheat and
never get caught. Yeah.
That to me.
That's high.
From what you expect from societal norms and intuition, you would think that'd be a much lower number. But no, right. Women will go out there and cheat too.
Yeah. Now, it's not to say there's something wrong with people being sexually, what's the word I'm looking for?
Promiscuous?
Active, or, that's their thing. But I guess because we're talking about the commitment of marriage here and what it means to people, boy, I guess this is where it comes down to, you should really have these discussions before you make this commitment with somebody. These are because everybody has a little bit different idea of what the rules are.
But who tells you to have a discussion about cheating and commitment, that kind of commitment when you're getting married?
How do you know all the unknowns?
It's just expected. So
right.
that's a whole new almost paradigm of marriage, trying to understand. We're trying to come up with a contract for this almost.
Mm-hmm. I mean, in my mind, I'm like, well, I think it's pretty laid out, pretty black and white. But it is and it isn't.
Nothing is black and white
Nothing
anymore.
is black and white. So
but back to our guest now.
Yeah.
So we went through a bunch of stats here. This person has been cheated on physically rather recently.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard.
Very.
From what I've been through a long time ago, it is a shock to the system. You try to figure out what you want out of life and what you want out of this relationship, and you've got to make a decision on whether you could rebuild that trust. Because again, that's what was broken. And if
Yeah.
you could repair that trust with that person, and you think you can, that's what you want to do, then that's your choice. But it's from the statistics, not everyone who's been cheated on ends that relationship.
Right. Which gives me a lot of hope that
That's the silver lining.
yeah.
I'm the pessimist, and I'm like, that just means a lot of people put up with a lot of shit that they probably shouldn't
Right.
be putting up with.
This is true. Well, it gives yeah, because it's like, oh, well, that's hopeful. Thinking about it, I'm like, well, that's kind of messed up, really. Yeah, because the question is do a lot of people stay for other reasons that they're just hanging on and the other thing is you and I talked about the other day is so people at the time that the survey was taken stayed, right? And their marriages continued and they didn't break up for this reason. But how long ago did they cheat? And then are they still married now?
Yeah, that gets back to sort of my situation.
Yeah.
It wasn't the direct cause of the end of the relationship, but it probably contributed.
It's certainly weakened it, probably.
And I'm sure that's weakened. Now, I'm sure a marriage has been weakened after it's happened.
I do remember I have a friend who shared with me her parents had a situation like this where one had stepped out on the marriage and had an affair, and it went on for a little bit, and that person came back to the marriage and they talked about it, and then their marriage became better than ever, and they're still together. And it's been many, 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 many years. So what was my point? I guess
that marriage can survive.
Survive. And it can sometimes, who knows, it could make a marriage stronger for different reasons. I think it really comes down to each relationship is completely unique unto itself.
That could, again, everyone puts the infidelity or the affair as the reason. Yeah. No, it comes down to trust and communication.
Yes.
So if you can build the trust and you can communicate with the person and you've increased your communication because of the breaking of the trust, which now allows you to have more trust.
Yeah.
That's possible. Anything is possible.
Well, you make a great point, if you don't mind me jumping on that, is that communication and trust. Could it be that cheating is a symptom of poor communication and trust in the marriage to begin with? And maybe the affair or the cheating isn't the problem. It's the fact that maybe there's a lack of communication there or something else missing in that intimacy section.
For a percentage of the individuals that cheat, probably.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a couple out there that just got the urge and it happens. So,
it could be. Yeah. So I guess it's something to definitely explore and to really do some soul searching and find some good support, objective support somewhere, whether it's friends or professional or otherwise, and take some time before you decide. You don't have to make a decision today.
If you need to walk out and find a new place to stay for a little while, go for it. But you don't need to decide whether to end the full relationship.
Yeah. I think having a really strong support system really helped me in my situations, and doing some soul searching and not reacting in the heat of a moment, but rather really stepping back and giving it a nice review, and not a nice review. It's a weird word, but step back and reflect and go from there. I don't think it's just a black and white. Yes, this is what you should do. That's what you should do. Every person is different. Every relationship is different. And what you feel today may be different than what you feel tomorrow.
And anyone who's been married and divorced, nothing is black and white.
Yeah.
Everything is gray. You have to weigh each side of the situation and find out what's best for you.
Mm-hmm. Live in the gray.
Yeah. So, I'm curious what you guys think about this topic. Please go on the website and give us some feedback. What's your take on being cheated on, or how would you?
What is your experience, and where do you come from? And why is that your angle on cheating? I think we can't really tell our listener what to do because we don't know all the details. But it would certainly,
and that's not our job either. We're not professionals.
Right, we're not professionals. That's not where we come from. But it might help to share our own experiences so that our listener doesn't feel alone in the situation, and offer support, and knowing that you're not the only person that this has happened to, even though at the time it probably feels like it is. So, yeah, if you guys could reach out, find us at lifelafterdivorce.com, send us an email at info@lifelafterdivorce.com. We'd love to hear from you. We'll be happy to post any responses on our upcoming blog and share them in the next episode. And special thanks to our anonymous guest this week. We really appreciate you reaching out. We're really glad that you're listening. You are not alone. We are here for you every Tuesday with a new episode. And we really hope that, if only for the last half hour, you found some comfort. So thanks so much.